7 isometric exercises that restore 90% of your leg strength in 21 days. There is a phrase that circulates among longevity specialists that is worth stating right from the start. Death begins in the legs. It may sound like an exaggeration, but there are solid grounds for saying so. A study published in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology revealed that people with muscular weakness in the legs have an 82% higher risk of developing serious cardiovascular diseases, in addition to accelerated cognitive decline and progressive loss of independence. In other words, keeping your legs strong is not a matter of vanity. It is a matter of surviving with quality of life. The problem is that when people become aware of this, the most common recommendation is go to the gym. But at this stage of life, without real individual guidance, since the instructor has to divide attention among 30 or 40 students at the same time, the risk of injuring joints already weakened by time is very high. And nobody deserves to leave home wanting to improve their health and come back with a damaged knee. That is why today you will see 7 isometric exercises to do at home that restore 90% of your leg strength in 21 days without causing damage to your joints. Stay attentive until the end, because number 5 is especially important. Before we begin, please tell us through the comments your name and the city from which you are watching our content. We would love to know. Exercise number 7, static lunge. The static lunge is perhaps one of the most underestimated exercises when it comes to leg strength recovery. Unlike the dynamic lunge, where you take steps and move around, here the body remains completely still in a challenging position. And it is precisely this stillness that makes the exercise so powerful. The musculature has to work constantly and intensely simply to sustain the posture, without any movement impulse to make it easier. This generates a deep and sustained muscular recruitment in the quadriceps, the gluteus maximus, the hip adductors, the deep core, and even the calf. In addition to developing real static strength, the static lunge is excellent for correcting imbalances between the legs, something very common after long periods of inactivity or recovery from an injury. Since each side is worked in isolation, the body cannot compensate with the stronger leg, which forces the weaker side to take responsibility. The result, over time, is a much more balanced and secure muscular base. To execute it correctly, take a step forward and lower the body until the back knee is close to the ground. The front knee should be directly aligned over the ankle, without going past the toes. The torso remains upright, the gaze forward, and the core contracted throughout. From there, do not move. Hold that position with control and steady breathing. One mistake I see many people make is letting the front knee collapse inward while holding the position. This overloads the ligament and removes much of the benefit of the exercise. Another common mistake is leaning the torso too far forward, which transfers the load from the glutes and quadriceps to the lower back, creating unnecessary tension. Stay upright and keep the load where it belongs. For beginners, the ideal is to start with 3 sets of 30 seconds per leg, resting 45 to 60 seconds between alternations. Over time, progressively increase to 45 and then 60 seconds per leg. It is contraindicated for those with acute injuries in the knee or ankle, especially in cases where any joint load causes immediate pain. Exercise number 6, pillow squeeze. This is one of those exercises that at first glance seems too simple to be taken seriously. But the isometric pillow squeeze is, in practice, one of the most effective tools for activating the hip adductors, which are the inner thigh muscles. And these muscles are frequently ignored in conventional training, even though they are fundamental for knee stability and for protecting the hip joint. The exercise works primarily the long, short, and magnus adductors, as well as the gracilis and, secondarily, the core. The great advantage for those at this stage of life is that there is no joint impact involved. You are lying down, comfortable, exerting force. This makes the pillow squeeze a valuable option, even for those with knee or hip limitations that prevent standing exercises. To execute it, lie on your back with your knees bent at 90 degrees. Place a firm pillow, a rubber ball, or even a rolled blanket between your knees. Then press the object with as much force as you can, as if the goal were to crush it completely, and hold that contraction. The secret is to maintain constant pressure from start to finish of the set, without letting the force fluctuate. Many people make the mistake of pressing hard in the first few seconds and then gradually easing off without noticing. Pay attention to this. Another mistake is holding the breath during the contraction, which unnecessarily increases internal abdominal pressure and can cause discomfort. Breathe slowly and in a controlled manner throughout the exercise. For beginners, 3 sets of 30 seconds with 45 seconds of rest between them are sufficient to start. As you adapt, progress to 45 seconds of contraction. This is a very low-risk, high-return exercise for this age group. Exercise number 5, standing on one leg. It may seem that standing still on one leg is too simple to make it onto a list of serious exercises, but science disagrees. Balancing on a single leg is actually a clinical test used by researchers to assess the risk of mortality in older adults. A study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine showed that people over the age of 50 who cannot maintain this balance for at least 10 seconds have a significantly higher risk of death in the following 10 years. That says a great deal about what this exercise represents for the body. What makes this exercise particularly valuable is that it works in an integrated way. The ankle stabilizers, the gluteus medius, which is fundamental for pelvic alignment, the quadriceps, and the entire proprioceptive system of the lower limb. Proprioception is basically your body's ability to know where it is in space, and this ability deteriorates rapidly with inactivity, being one of the main causes of falls in older adults. To execute it, stand close to a wall or chair for safety. Transfer all your weight to one leg and slightly lift the opposite foot off the ground, keeping it close to the floor. The supporting knee should be slightly bent, never locked. Fixing your gaze on a point ahead helps greatly to maintain balance. The main mistakes are locking the knee, which overloads the joint, and the torso swaying to compensate, which indicates weakness in the gluteus medius. If you notice your hip dropping to one side, that is a clear sign that the gluteus medius on that side needs attention. Beginners should start with 3 sets of 20 to 30 seconds per side. To progressively increase the challenge, try closing your eyes, which makes the exercise noticeably harder by eliminating visual reference. This exercise is especially recommended for fall prevention, and there are almost no contraindications as long as the execution is done safely and near a support. Exercise number 4, wall sit. The wall sit has its direct origins in physical rehabilitation practices and has been used by physical therapists for decades precisely because it develops significant muscular strength without imposing impact on the joints. It is the kind of exercise that seems gentle, but when you are in the 3rd minute holding the position, it reveals its full seriousness. It works the quadriceps, glutes, adductors, and core intensely, and it does so in a functional way, meaning the movement pattern is directly related to the ability to sit, stand up, and climb stairs with independence, skills that are progressively lost when the legs weaken. Regular practitioners of this position report significant improvement in stability when rising from chairs and confidence when going down stairs, which directly impacts everyday quality of life. To execute it correctly, press your back completely against the wall and slide the body down until the thighs are parallel to the ground, forming a 90-degree angle at the knees. The feet should be shoulder width apart and slightly in front of the body, never directly under the knees. The knees point in the same direction as the feet. The weight should be equally distributed between both feet, without favoring either side. The most common mistakes are letting the knees collapse inward, which is especially harmful in this exercise, and not descending to the 90-degree angle, which drastically reduces muscular activation. For beginners, start with 3 sets of 30 seconds and progress gradually to 45 and then 60 seconds. An important note: people with uncontrolled high blood pressure should be cautious with this exercise, as prolonged isometric contractions in large muscle groups can temporarily raise blood pressure. Those on blood pressure medication should consult a doctor before including it in their routine. Before we continue, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Having constant access to science-based information is what will help you progress with long-term health in the world of exercise. Exercise number 3, side plank with leg abduction. If you have made it this far, this is the exercise we promised to highlight, and for good reasons. The side plank with leg abduction is an advanced isometric exercise that combines 2 challenges at once: lateral trunk stabilization and intense work of the gluteus medius and minimus. And these 2 smaller glutes, frequently forgotten in favor of the gluteus maximus, are absolutely essential for pelvic alignment and for protecting the knee. You know that feeling of lateral instability when walking on uneven terrain, or that knee that seems to want to cave inward when going down a staircase? In most cases, the root cause is weakness in the gluteus medius. This exercise directly addresses that point. In addition to the gluteus medius and minimus, the side plank with leg abduction intensely recruits the obliques, the quadratus lumborum, the adductors of the supporting leg, and the shoulder stabilizers. To execute it, lie on your side and support yourself on your forearm on the ground with the elbow directly below the shoulder. The body should form a straight line from the head to the heel. Then lift the top leg as high as you can and hold the position. The hip should not sink at any moment. movement. The most frequent mistake is letting the hip drop, which turns the plank into a lower back endurance exercise and completely removes the focus from the glute. Another common mistake is rotating the torso backward during the leg lift, which indicates a lack of pelvic rotation control. Beginners can start with the leg elevated partially without needing to go to the full range of motion, with 3 sets of 20 seconds per side. Progress to 30 and then 40 seconds as strength increases. It is contraindicated for people with acute injuries in the shoulder, hip, or lumbar spine. Exercise number 2, isometric calf raise. There is a nickname that the calves carry in exercise physiology, the second heart of the body, and it is not an exaggeration. The calf muscles, especially the gastrocnemius and the soleus, have the active function of compressing the veins of the legs with each contraction, pumping blood back to the heart against the force of gravity. In people with weak and inactive calves, this venous return is compromised, which increases the risk of varicose veins, leg swelling, and, in more serious cases, deep vein thrombosis. The isometric calf raise consists of rising onto the balls of your feet as high as possible and holding that position without returning to the ground. What differentiates this version from common dynamic raises is precisely the continuous time under tension, which forces the muscle fibers to work at their limit for much longer. The calves are composed mostly of slow twitch fibers, highly resistant to fatigue, and for this reason, they respond better to longer sets than to fast and explosive movements. To execute it correctly, stand close to a wall or chair for balance. Rise onto the balls of your feet by lifting the heels as high as possible and hold that position with maximum contraction. The knees should be slightly bent, never completely locked. The main mistake is not rising to the full point of elevation, which significantly reduces gastrocnemius recruitment. Another mistake is letting the ankles roll outward during the position, which diverts tension away from the target muscles. In addition to strengthening the musculature, well-developed and active calves contribute directly to body balance, which is especially relevant in fall prevention. For this exercise, I recommend 4 sets of 30 to 45 seconds, with only 30 seconds of rest between them, taking advantage of the high fatigue resistance of the local fibers. It is contraindicated for acute tendinitis of the Achilles tendon and should be done with caution by those with plantar fasciitis. Exercise number 1, isometric glute bridge. The gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the human body. Most people do not know this, and what is even more curious is that, despite its size, it is also one of the muscles most frequently deactivated by modern life. Those who spend more than 6 to 8 hours a day sitting, whether at work or at home, develop a phenomenon called dormant glute syndrome, where the muscle literally loses part of its capacity for spontaneous contraction. The most visible result of this dysfunction is not aesthetic. It is chronic lower back pain, which affects millions of people and which, in many cases, has its direct origin in the inability of the glutes to adequately stabilize the pelvis. The isometric glute bridge attacks this problem directly. By isolating and sustaining the contraction of the glutes for prolonged periods, you reactivate the neuromuscular connections that were weakened by inactivity. Over time, the muscle returns to contracting automatically and efficiently, relieving the overload on the lower back and improving posture as a whole. To execute it, lie on your back with your knees bent at 90 degrees and your feet resting on the ground, hip-width apart. Lift the hips by contracting the glutes with maximum force until the body forms a straight line from the knees to the shoulders. Hold that position. The most common mistake is using the lower back to lift the hips instead of the glutes. If you feel more tension in the lower back than in the glutes, it is a sign that the activation is incorrect. Before lifting, consciously think about squeezing the glutes first and only then lift. Another frequent mistake is letting the knees open outward during the position, which deactivates part of the target musculature. Beginners should start with 3 sets of 30 to 45 seconds, resting 45 to 60 seconds between them. Progress to 60 seconds over time. It is contraindicated for acute injuries in the lumbar region and for untreated herniated discs, where any hip extension can worsen the condition. Bonus exercise, horse stance. You have just seen 7 exercises that work the legs in distinct and complementary ways, but there is one exercise that goes beyond any of them in terms of muscular breadth and depth of recruitment, and it comes from an unexpected place: martial arts. The horse stance is a fundamental position in martial arts such as kung fu and karate, practiced for centuries as a conditioning base for warriors who needed unshakable legs. What these ancient masters discovered empirically, exercise physiology has confirmed. This posture recruits the quadriceps, the adductors, and the glutes at a unique angle that almost no other exercise can replicate. The wide opening of the legs legs and the external rotation of the feet create a specific demand on the adductors that goes far beyond what traditional exercises can achieve. To execute it, spread your feet double the width of your shoulders with the toes slightly rotated outward. Bend the knees and lower the body until the thighs are parallel to the ground, as if sitting in a very wide, invisible chair. The torso remains upright, the gaze forward, and the hands can rest on the hips or be extended in front for balance. One thing that tends to surprise those doing it for the first time are the muscle tremors that appear during the exercise. These tremors are completely normal and indicate maximum recruitment of the muscle fibers. It is the muscle working at its limit, and that is exactly what we want. The most common mistakes are letting the knees collapse inward, which overloads the ligaments, and not descending to the position parallel to the ground, which is where muscular activation really happens effectively. If the parallel position is still challenging, descend as far as you can without pain and deepen it over time. Beginners should start with 3 sets of 20 to 30 seconds. It is contraindicated for adductor injuries or serious knee problems in the acute phase. If you enjoyed this and want to also discover isometric postures to recover and strengthen the upper body, we have left a video appearing on screen right now showing each one of them in detail. Make sure to check it out. Thank you for watching until the end, and God bless you, my friend.